Good afternoon, everyone. This is Wafik El-Deiry, the director of the Legorreta Cancer Center at Brown University. This is the Legorreta Cancer Center Directors Podcast, and I'm delighted to have with us this afternoon Dr. Sherise Rogers, our Associate Director for Community Outreach and Engagement at the Cancer Center. Um, it's a cold day today and this week here in Providence. We're getting into mid-December, chilly weather, and but it's an exciting time in oncology and in Rhode Island in particular. There are many advances and much progress. Today, we will be talking about community outreach and engagement at our cancer center. And, over the last few years, community outreach and engagement at NCI designated cancer centers has become a very important activity, front and center, where we reach out and we connect with our communities, with all of their diverse populations and community members. And we learn from the community to help set our research agenda so that ultimately we can have impact within our catchment area and within our state of Rhode Island uh, in order to really fulfill certain really important mandates to make a difference within our communities. Um, Dr. Rogers is joining us today. She has been our colleague at Brown University and Brown University Health since about June. She has a distinguished career of accomplishment. She's a practicing medical oncologist in the area of GI cancer and has had a strong interest and accomplishments with regard to community outreach. And so I will uh, give her a chance to tell us a little bit about your career path and how you got to where you are today, and how some of the experience have shaped these directions.
Wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here today, Dr. El-Deiry. And I'm really excited to tell our viewers more about me and the work I'm doing as Associate Director for Community Outreach and Engagement. So, as you know, I am not a native Rhode Islander. I grew up in New York City. Very humble means I grew up not with a lot of resources, but knew about working hard. And what really struck me as a little girl was some of the things that I saw missing in my community and a lot of health concerns in my community and them and people not really understanding what was going on and not feeling empowered to take care of their health. I ended up working really hard and started my undergraduate career at Cornell University. And that was the first time I ever thought about becoming a doctor. It was actually the first time I saw a doctor that of color, actually, in face to face. And I think that experience was so pivotal for me because I then decided, hey, I could be a doctor. And it was just because some alum from Cornell came up from my same neighborhoods that I grew up in and really showed me that this is possible. I took advantage of that opportunity and then the rest of the story was history in terms of like me learning and exploring what it means to be a doctor. I ended up obtaining a master's in public health so I could really understand communities and how we can heal communities. And that was really important. I decided to become a medical oncologist because I really enjoy talking to patients. Oncologists have this great opportunity to really get to know our patients, probably more intimately than any other profession in medicine. And I really enjoyed that. And the second other reason why I decided to become an oncologist because of all the innovation. I knew I would never get bored of this field. So I'm really excited to be practicing. And I also started developing my career in clinical trials, being actually one of the first WIN scholars. So that's where I really dove into understanding how we could make clinical trials available for everyone so that all people can benefit from the science that we're doing to improve cancer outcomes. So I know I talked a lot about who I am, but that's kind of where I am today. I'll end off with saying that I also did a health equity leadership program through Hosen Commonwealth Fund, where I completed a Yale Executive MBA in healthcare. So I'm really poised to really understand not only the communities, but the infrastructure of the healthcare ecosystem and actually seeing patients one-on-one, and which has been a very unique experience for me. And I'm really excited to continue my work here.
And we're very excited that you have joined us and are leading efforts in community outreach and engagement here at our cancer center and health system as it relates to cancer. So maybe we can talk about that for a minute. What does community outreach and engagement actually mean for a cancer center today?
So community outreach and engagement is pivotal. It's like really one of the, just like a building, you need these important pillars to keep things up the foundation strong. That's what it is. It's so important, not just as an imperative for the NCI designation, but it's so important that we actually are serving the communities that use our services. Historically, particularly communities of color have had issues with obtaining access to care, and several other communities with building trust in centers, and community outreach really helps us to understand the needs so that we're not just putting dollars into things that are actually not working, and that we're also building the science that's really important for our people.
And how do we ensure that the outreach is meaningful? Uh, and in part, how the input shapes our priorities here at the Legorreta Cancer Center.
Yes, great question. So this is a big plug for my community advisory board here. Um, So community advisory boards are, the way I vision them, they are boards that are composed of people from all walks of life that represent Rhode Island. And that's something that I see is really important. So I mean, everybody. I mean, it's not easy to get everybody to come together, but the goal is to get everybody to come together to see what's important. And when you have all those diverse experiences and perspectives and expertise and lived experience, that helps to be able to really generate a great structure around what the problems are and what the solutions are. So I think that's really important for cancer centers to develop their priorities, not just as a nice thing to do, but as a good thing to do so that the research, all the programs, the events, the education actually makes sense. You want things that we invest in to really help people.
And how are you approaching building that community advisory board?
Yes, that's probably been the most funnest part of my job is building this community advisory board because I get to talk to everybody and everyone's so excited. They really want to see cancer be completely ridden of in Rhode Island. And they really want their communities and people that they represent to be supported and represented. And I've learned so much through listening to them and hearing what's important to them. And we just actually had our first community advisory board meeting about a month ago. And the things that they told me about, I would have never thought that that was of the immediate importance to do. And now that I have that information, it's our responsibility to really come back with transparency and see how we can work together to create good solutions. and try our best to incorporate things that really reflect their needs.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the cancer burden in our state. And I realize you have been here a fairly short time, but I know that you are familiar with how cancer impacts Rhode Island, and so maybe you can comment on that, but also talk a little bit about some of the biggest contributors to cancer disparities.
Great. So I'm a GI medical oncologist, so I am seeing tons of, colon and rectal cancers. Rhode Island is not unique in the sense that uh, we are the top kind of three cancers in the US. Those are the ones we see. So those are like lung, breast, and colorectal cancer and prostate. And we are we are struggling with those. The incidences are high. We have some we have like also a lot of research imperatives and some of our neurological cancers, as well as we have a higher incidence of some of our other GU cancers, such as bladder cancers. And it's really important that we, as a cancer center, deal with the most common to even some of the most rarest of disease, because that's so important to ensure that we are helping all of our communities and all the different cancers that are contributing to our cancer burden. I believe your second question was about how how disparities may exist in that and why. That's been really important to us, even some of the research I've done a couple years ago related to pancreatic cancer. And traditionally, I would say people have thought mostly biology is the reason. And that's actually most of our research shows that biology is not the number one reason why maybe one group of people may have higher incidences or worse outcomes related to a cancer. But what we're finding is certain groups may not have equal access to healthcare. They may also be diagnosed much later, which then obviously makes things worse in terms of outcomes. People may have a lot of barriers to social drivers of health. So if you have difficulties with being able to get to appointments, affording medications, and being able to take them on a regular basis, those are barriers. Even language barriers can be a problem. So these are things that when we think of individuals and the holistic part of care, we need to be looking at all those things and addressing those. And that's how we'll improve the disparities that we see in cancer in Rhode Island.
Maybe you could share a little bit of insight into some overlooked barriers patients face, especially when navigating a new cancer diagnosis.
Yes, I think this is a really important question, and sometimes us as oncologists forget about. It's the fact that when someone is diagnosed with cancer, it creates a chaos and a huge cognitive load. There's so many things that individuals may be navigating that they've never had to experience before. A lot of information about staging, diagnosis, prognosis. Who's this doctor? There's an oncologist and a surgeon and a radiation oncologist, and there's a pathology report. Like it's a lot, and you know, it's it again, it's so much for a patient to handle at that time, and then there's the emotional aspect in addition to all the cognitive demands that we ask from them, and then side effects and all these other things. So understanding holistically what a patient undergoes when they get a new cancer diagnosis is really important.
So you are active as a clinician and clinical researchers. Maybe we can speak about clinical trials for a moment here, and I'd love to hear from you. Why are clinical trials important, especially for communities that have historically been left out?
Yeah. So clinical trials, a lot of people think, oh, that's what you do of last resort. That's not so. All of our national guidelines recommend if there's a clinical trial available for a cancer type and a cancer specific cancer stage, then that is something that we really want patients to participate in. And really, what I like to tell people is think about how we have the current standard of care now. That it only exists because others participated in a clinical trial. And obviously, we want to make it so that we cure all cancers in the future. And the only way to do that is for us to have more trials that with great science that people participate in. So we have rigorous research to advance that. So we want to develop more cures. And we want cures to happen for all people. And the only way to do that is to have them represented in trials. And, I know many viewers are listening, understand that there has been, historically, many people have been hurt by science in the past. Things have changed, and I really encourage all people, if you know someone with a cancer diagnosis, or if you have a cancer diagnosis, to be open to asking about clinical trials and thinking about them as well. And that's how we actually advance the future of oncology.
How can community members get more involved or informed about clinical trials?
Great question. Um, I'll say this. I think particularly for my community in Rhode Island, um, reach out to me. I think it's can be very intimidating to look at a website and try to understand and navigate yourself what clinical trials available there are. And I say reach out to me because being a part of, for example, like our community advisory board, I really want our members to feel really engaged and a part of the community that we have at the Cancer Center and beyond with all of our partners in our ecosystem in Rhode Island. And by doing so, you get to hear firsthand how we are building these clinical trials, what's important, what's not going to work for communities. So I think the more we get communities involved in the actual research and the trials that we're building, they also will be able to educate us on what's important. Is this a good way and how we're going about recruiting patients on clinical trials, as well as a great way and what we're asking patients to do while they're in a clinical trial. And that feedback will only make us better for it.
Um, what motivated you personally to focus on health equity and community-centered cancer care?
Lovely. So I think it really just draws back. I think I'm doing this like full circle moment back to when I was a little girl. I didn't know any of these words and what that meant. What is a disparity? What is community focused care? I just knew that I was a little girl that lived in a community and there were health problems. And now that I, have been able to uh, take advantage of opportunities to educate myself and do research and be around individuals who are like-minded and trying to solve these problems. I think it's my job to really make sure that the questions this little girl asked of herself in the world, that we develop some solutions for that. And every day I think about that, and it just helps guide me along my path.
Thank you for that. What does a future look like where community engagement is integrated into every part of a cancer center?
Yeah. Um, that's the ideal. And I see that as actually coming to fruition. You know, it's really where there is someone in the community that's a part of each aspect of the cancer center. And um, the only way we do that is continuing to build relationships. Relationships are all we really have, that's how we get things done. That's how we communicate. That's how, we actually execute good strategy. And, the way we do it right is just putting the community members in the places where traditionally maybe they don't feel they belong. But, I'm here to disrupt that myth. The community belongs there just as much as I do as a physician scientist or any one of us do.
You've been with us in Rhode Island for a few months now. What's your experience been like so far here in Rhode Island with community events, the Community Advisory Board, and working with our Cancer Center leadership?
Oh wow. I got on my feet, on the ground running because there's so many events, which is great. I'll start with our own leadership team at the Legorreta Cancer Center. So we meet pretty much every Friday, and we are very active in discussing what's going on. We have very organized and coordinated meetings with our cancer center director here. And, we are kept abreast of what's going on nationally and also what's going on currently in our state. Um, the community is very engaged. Every time I turn around, I'm learning more about a group that's meeting that around cancer or some type of community outreach. We have a great, Department of Health and so many partners. I don't want to name all of them because I know I'm going to leave one out and then I'm going to feel bad about it. But I'll say it's very robust, and I'm blessed to have so many people that are interested in this.
Thank you. What would you say to our community, our colleagues here, and our partners at the State House?
I would say that, you know, cancer, cancer in Rhode Island, it's a big problem. And there's so many things that we can think about in terms of addressing that problem. And we need to remember to work together as well as, potentially consolidate our resources or brilliant minds, as well as our financial resources to really get the things that we need. There's so many things that we still need to here in Rhode Island to continually evolve and be, one of the outstanding cancer centers in the country.
Sherise, what keeps you hopeful?
What keeps me hopeful are people and relationships. Again, every time I have like a one-on-one with a person, they remind me so how important it is that we're working on solutions to solve cancer. Every day in clinic, I see it as well. Um, I treat GI malignancies, and many of our cancers have a survival rate of less than a year. So I'd like to change that. And the only way we can really do this effectively is if we all work together.
Thank you for that. What do you enjoy doing outside of science and everything that we have been talking about?
Gotcha. I thought that was for another podcast, but what do I like to do? So most of my time is spent really, I mean, I've been a big foodie. Providence has so many good restaurants. I enjoy working out. I try to do what I preach for my patients and try to get enough sleep and work out and do all those things. I have a fluffy, furry friend, my dog that gives me a lot of joy that I play with. And I'm also, not last but not least, a digital health entrepreneur. So that keeps me busy as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and giving us a glimpse into your different activities and the exciting, important work you're doing in the area of community outreach in Rhode Island. It's great to have you among our senior leaders at the Cancer Center, and look forward to seeing the impact as we interact with the community and work to address the burden of cancer here. I am optimistic and excited about what the future holds. And so I'd like to thank you once again for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.